Shedeur Sanders.
Okay.
You know what? It's a shame that, we have to have this turmoil in Cleveland talking about this kid. This kid is a bona fide winner. The city of Cleveland need to get behind this kid because he wanted to be in Cleveland. He wants to win. He wants to work in the community. He keeps himself clean. He stayed in Cleveland all year long to work out just to get this position. He's a worker, man. This guy is him.
Brown in 2027. The most direct way out of the Deshaun Watson mess is for sure Shedeur to be the guy. Can he be? Is there a small chance? Is there a big chance? I don't know. But Shedeur Sanders is 24 years old, and he needs...
Something is changing in Cleveland, and the people watching every Browns practice up close are starting to notice it. For weeks, fans have argued about the quarterback situation. Some were convinced the decision had already been made. Others believed there was still a real battle taking place behind the scenes. But now, as OTAs continue rolling along, the reports coming out of Berea are telling a story that is getting harder and harder to ignore, and that story revolves around Shedeur Sanders. This isn't about internet hype. It isn't about highlight clips edited to make every throw look like the greatest pass in NFL history. This is about what respected Browns reporters are actually seeing during practice every single day. The people standing just a few yards away from the action are beginning to describe a competition that looks a lot more open than many expected. In fact, some insiders are openly acknowledging that Shedeur Sanders is putting serious pressure on everyone else in the quarterback room. One of the most trusted voices covering the Browns is Zach Jackson. If you've followed the team for any amount of time, you know Jackson isn't the type to chase headlines or manufacture drama.
It is him. When you look around and you talk to any of the players on the team, who they gravitate towards? Shedeur Sanders.
Every time.
He's got that magnetic personality that causes everybody to come together. He's a guy that wants to bring everybody together for one cause. And that's leadership.
Yeah.
That's leadership in a vacuum. And if they want to win, they need to put this guy in a place to win games and do all they can. And I'm sure the team's going to rally around him every game. Even if we down, he's going to get in the huddle. They're going to call a play for him, and they're going to believe that they can accomplish that goal.
He doesn't need flashy predictions to get attention. His reputation comes from carefully observing what's happening and reporting exactly what he sees. That's why his recent observations have grabbed so much attention. Throughout these OTA sessions, Jackson has documented several developments that suggest the coaching staff is taking a very close look at Shedeur Sanders. And one detail in particular stood out. At one point, Sanders was working alongside the first offensive line and top receiving group. That may sound like a small detail to casual fans, but inside NFL buildings, those details matter a lot. Because coaches don't randomly shuffle quarterbacks into premium situations just for fun. This isn't a classroom where everybody gets a turn at the front of the room. Every rep has value. Every opportunity is earned. Coaches are constantly evaluating who gives them the best chance to move the offense efficiently. So when a quarterback starts receiving opportunities with the top unit, people pay attention. And that's exactly what happened here. What's interesting is that only a short time earlier, Sanders had been working with a different group. Then suddenly he's getting chances with players higher on the depth chart. That's not something that happens accidentally. Usually it means coaches are seeing enough positive signs to increase the level of responsibility. Think about it like this. If you're running a business and one employee keeps delivering strong results, eventually you're going to trust them with bigger assignments. Football works the same way.
Deshaun Watson does not play in the National Football League anymore, guys. And the events of the week would tell you that it's even more pointless to play Deshaun Watson than it's been for all these months that we've been talking about it. So that more than anything is the most notable shift. When we talk about big throws and highlight throws and this and that, we don't know. I'm looking at the reps. I'm looking at who's in the front line, who's in the huddle. So it was a slop.
Coaches reward progress with opportunity. And according to the reports coming out of practice, Shedeur Sanders has been creating exactly the kind of momentum that earns those opportunities. The conversation became even more interesting when Zach Jackson appeared on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. During that appearance, Jackson discussed the quarterback competition and made it clear that this battle is very much alive. In his view, the race isn't settled. The final decision hasn't been written down. Nobody has been handed anything. That matters because for a while, many people outside the building were acting as if the outcome had already been decided months ago.
Shedeur Sanders, I have to say that he won the day today. Even though it was a little bit of an uneven practice, a little bit of a ragged practice, Shedeur Sanders came up with the play of the day. He went first in most of the team drills, most of the 11-on-11.
The assumption was simple. Some believed the depth chart was basically locked in and everybody else was competing for backup spots. But the information coming from practice keeps challenging that assumption. Jackson specifically highlighted that Sanders worked as the starter during team drills in one OTA session. Again, that's not the type of thing reporters mention casually. When experienced beat reporters repeatedly point out where a quarterback is lining up, who he's throwing to, and which groups he's working with, they're usually telling you something important without having to say it directly. It's their way of saying, pay attention to this. And more people are starting to do exactly that. What's making this situation fascinating is that Sanders isn't generating attention through flashy press conferences or bold predictions. Most of the discussion is being driven by what he's doing between the lines. That's usually how coaches prefer it. NFL staffs care far more about execution than headlines. They want quarterbacks who consistently make good decisions, understand assignments, and keep the offense moving. The exciting social media moments are nice, but coaches live in a world of details, and right now, those details appear to be working in Sanders' favor. Every practice becomes another opportunity to build trust. Every successful rep becomes another reason for coaches to keep evaluating him alongside the top players.
This time around, it's like, all right, let's see if Shedeur has a chance to take over this job. I get more excited if Shedeur has a chance to take over the job because I think it's way more fun talking about Shedeur than it is the other guy. If I don't think the team's going to do that incredibly well this year. So I'm rooting for Shedeur to win the job.
Now, I still said I think what would actually be more ideal for Shedeur, ironically, would be starting the season off the bench, watching Watson most likely fail, and then coming in while the offensive line has a chance to gel. Brand new offensive line, and those weapons they're rookies on week one. But in the NFL, when guys are good, like that rookie label gets shed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then by like week 5, it's like, oh yeah, no, they're good. Like this kid's good. This guy knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
And so that's why I thought, ironically, as heated as this is between fans, media, and maybe the players, maybe coming off the bench and allowing things. It's not like last year where Shedeur started as the 4th stringer. And yeah, then they got rid of
Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett. And so
then
now
Joe got banged up.
So now he's the 3rd, and he's not really preparing.
Replaced, I should say.
Third, you could say, hey, you should always be preparing to start. But the reality is, if you're 3rd string, you're not preparing to start. You're mentally not. You can't.
Every adjustment becomes another chance to show he's ready for more responsibility. That's how quarterback battles are won, not in one dramatic moment, not with one viral throw, not with one exciting practice clip. They're won gradually, through repetition, consistency, and earning confidence from the people making the decisions. And according to the observations being reported from Berea, that's exactly what Shedeur Sanders has been doing. The biggest takeaway from all of this isn't that the competition is over. Nobody credible is saying that. The real takeaway is that the competition appears to be far more competitive than many expected a few weeks ago. That's significant, because once coaches begin increasing a player's opportunities, everybody starts watching a little closer. Teammates notice, reporters notice, fans notice. And that's where things stand right now. The quarterback battle is still unfolding, the evaluations are still happening, but one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Shedeur Sanders has forced his way into the conversation, and the people closest to the Browns organization are making sure everyone knows it. For most of these OTAs, Mary Kay Cabot had been pretty consistent in how she viewed the quarterback situation. If you followed her reporting, the message was fairly clear. Deshaun Watson appeared to have the edge, and many of the details coming out of practice seemed to support that conclusion. Cabot repeatedly pointed out that Watson had strong showings during the portions of practice open to reporters. She discussed on her podcast how the unofficial practice order often had Watson working ahead of Shedeur Sanders. She also highlighted another detail that caught the attention of people following the competition closely. Watson was frequently the quarterback used during 2-minute situations near the end of practice.
Actually, a report stating per sources that coming out of the voluntary minicamp, Deshaun Watson was ahead in the competition.
Now, football fans know coaches don't treat those situations lightly. The 2-minute drill is where quarterbacks are asked to think fast, communicate quickly, and move an offense under pressure. Coaches value those reps because they simulate some of the most important moments that happen during real games. So naturally, when reporters noticed Watson getting those opportunities, many assumed it was another sign that he remained in a favorable position. And honestly, based on the information available at the time, that wasn't an unreasonable conclusion. For weeks, the overall picture being painted suggested Watson had momentum. Not that the competition was over, but that he appeared to be operating from a position of strength. The conversation around Cleveland often centered on whether anybody could realistically close the gap. Then came OTA number 8. And suddenly, the entire discussion started sounding very different. Sometimes in sports, momentum shifts gradually. Other times it feels like somebody flips a light switch and everybody notices at once. This felt a lot closer to the second scenario. After that practice session, Cabot openly acknowledged that the quarterback battle had become significantly more competitive. More importantly, she stated that Shedeur Sanders had won the day. That statement alone grabbed attention. Why? Because it wasn't coming from a reporter who had spent weeks promoting Sanders. It was coming from someone whose previous reporting had often highlighted Watson's advantages. When somebody changes their assessment after seeing new evidence, people listen. And the evidence apparently made an impression.
So here's what 2026 is about. What is Shedeur Sanders?
That's it. That
Who
question has
is
to be
he?
answered. Yeah.
We can't get to that answer if Deshaun Watson screws things up and wins the starting quarterback job.
Well, I would say, the only thing I'd say to that is that if Deshaun Watson starts, I think the organization's decided Shedeur Sanders has no future.
You're right, but what does that leave lingering?
Nothing.
Oh, the fan base doesn't know that.
Right.
The fan base is saying, you sabotaged him again.
Yeah.
Divide,
play him.
conquer.
I
Let's
just don't
answer
understand.
the question.
Yeah.
Let's make him the starting quarterback.
There's better
and we'll
talent
figure
around
it
him this
out.
year. Let's go.
I don't think that we're going to definitively know that he is a star or definitively know he isn't a star if he stands with a baseball hat on his head.
No.
We've got to put him into the action, give him games, and let's see what we have.
Cabot also emphasized that offensive coordinator Todd Monken had not made a final decision regarding the starting quarterback role. That detail is huge because it directly challenged the idea that the competition had already been settled behind closed doors. If the decision isn't made, the door is still open. And if the door is still open, every practice matters. But perhaps the most eye-catching part of her evaluation involved one specific play. A deep connection between Shedeur Sanders and rookie receiver Isaiah Bond. According to Cabot, it was the standout moment of the entire practice. Now, every OTA seems to produce a few nice throws. Quarterbacks complete passes. Receivers make catches. Fans get excited. That's normal. But every once in a while, a play jumps off the field and forces everybody watching to stop talking for a second. This appeared to be one of those moments. The pass wasn't impressive simply because it was completed. It was impressive because of how it happened. Sanders reportedly delivered the ball with timing, anticipation, and placement, leading Bond into the catch while giving the defense little opportunity to recover. That's the kind of throw coaches love seeing because it demonstrates more than arm strength. It shows trust. It shows confidence. It shows a quarterback recognizing what is about to happen before everyone else catches up. And when those plays happen consistently, people inside the building start paying attention very quickly. What made the day even more notable was the overall performance surrounding that highlight. During the media viewing portion of practice, Sanders finished with 3 touchdown passes and no interceptions. Just as importantly, he avoided the costly mistakes coaches work hard to eliminate. Clean football always gets noticed. Explosive plays get headlines. But protecting the football earns trust. That's true in every NFL quarterback room. Meanwhile, Watson had some positive moments of his own, but one of the more discussed plays involved an interception in the end zone. Nobody is going to define an entire quarterback competition based on one throw, but when observers are comparing performances side by side, every rep becomes part of the conversation. And on this particular day, much of that conversation revolved around Sanders. The biggest takeaway wasn't necessarily the statistics. It wasn't even the touchdown total. It was the reaction afterward. The tone coming from reporters shifted. The questions shifted. The discussion around the competition shifted. Instead of asking whether Sanders belonged in the race, more people started asking how close the race had become. That's a very different conversation. And when experienced reporters begin describing a player's progress as a major leap forward, it's usually because they believe something meaningful has changed. Not because of hype, not because of social media, not because fans want it to be true, because they watched it happen with their own eyes. And based on what was reported after OTA number 8, Shedeur Sanders gave everybody in Cleveland a lot more to think about than they had just a few days earlier. What made that throw so impressive wasn't just where the ball ended up. It was everything that happened before the ball ever left Shedeur Sanders' hand. Most fans see the catch. Coaches see the decision. Before the snap, a quarterback has to read the defense, recognize potential pressure, identify where the coverage might break down, and make a decision in a matter of seconds. Then comes the hardest part. Trusting what he sees before the opening actually appears. That's where a lot of quarterbacks hesitate. Shedeur Sanders didn't. He diagnosed the coverage, anticipated the opening, and released the football with confidence before the separation fully developed. By the time the receiver created space, the ball was already on its way. That's high-level quarterback play, and somehow Sanders made it look as casual as ordering lunch. The scary part for the rest of the quarterback room? It didn't look lucky. It looked intentional. And according to Mary Kay Cabot, the entire atmosphere around practice felt different that day. Not slightly different. Not maybe something changed. Different. You could hear it in the way reporters discussed the session afterward. There was a noticeable shift in the conversation. The confidence in their observations seemed stronger. The descriptions became more direct. The uncertainty that had surrounded the competition for weeks suddenly felt a little smaller. Several reporters who had spent the entire spring watching practices began noticing the same trend. Whenever drills were moving at full speed, whenever the offense was operating in competitive situations, and whenever the intensity increased, it often seemed like Sanders was getting the first opportunity. That's a significant development. Because if you rewind just a few weeks, most reports painted a completely different picture. For a long stretch, Deshaun Watson was frequently the quarterback operating first in many situations. That became one of the main talking points surrounding the competition. Then suddenly people watching every practice started noticing Sanders getting more of those opportunities. That's not the kind of thing that happens because someone flipped a coin before practice. NFL coaches are obsessed with evaluation. Every rep is carefully planned. Every opportunity is tracked. Every decision has a purpose. So when the order begins changing, people naturally start asking why. And the answer usually comes back to performance. What makes Sanders' recent stretch even more impressive is that it wasn't built around one flashy throw or one highlight that exploded across social media. The evidence has been stacking up over multiple practices. Earlier during OTAs, Sanders delivered another pass that caught the attention of observers. Working against the first-team defense, he identified a narrow opening in the middle of the field and delivered a strike between defenders for a touchdown. Now that might sound simple when reading it on paper. Trust me, it isn't. Defenses spend their entire existence trying to close those windows. Linebackers are moving. Safeties are rotating. Passing lanes disappear in an instant. Quarterbacks have to process all of that information while maintaining timing and accuracy. The margin for error is tiny. Yet Sanders reportedly dropped the ball exactly where it needed to go. No panic, no hesitation, no unnecessary drama. Just read it and rip it. Quarterback coaches love that phrase because it sounds simple, but executing it consistently is incredibly difficult. Then there was another sequence that may have been even more revealing. On one play, pressure started collapsing around him. The pocket became crowded. Deep options were covered. Defenders were closing in from multiple directions. For young quarterbacks, that's usually where things get messy. Some start drifting backward. Some force dangerous throws. Some panic and create problems that didn't exist a second earlier. Sanders did none of that. Instead, he stayed calm, kept his eyes downfield, recognized the situation instantly, and delivered a quick pass underneath to the flat before the defense could react. The ball was out. The play was made. The defense was left chasing. That's the type of sequence coaches replay repeatedly during film sessions because it shows something far more important than arm talent. It shows command. Anybody can throw a football. Not everybody can process chaos while remaining composed. That's what separates quarterbacks at higher levels. And that's why so many observers have become increasingly intrigued by Sanders' development. The athletic ability gets attention, but it's the decision-making that keeps earning praise. Again and again, reports coming out of practice describe a quarterback who appears comfortable operating within the structure of the offense rather than relying on improvisation to save every play. That's exactly what coaching staffs want to see. And then came Todd Monken's comments after OTA Session 8. Monken didn't walk up to the podium and announce a starting quarterback. He didn't make any dramatic declarations. Coaches almost never do. But sometimes what coaches choose to emphasize tells you plenty. When speaking with reporters, Monken specifically pointed out that Sanders received a lot of work with the first team. Notice the wording. Not a little, not a handful, a lot. That's a pretty notable detail for a coach to highlight voluntarily. He also praised Sanders' progress and mentioned that he thought the young quarterback had a really strong day. Again, coaches don't hand out compliments like Halloween candy. Especially during active position battles, every word is chosen carefully. Every answer is measured. Which is exactly why people paid attention when Monken emphasized Sanders' growing role within practice. Because when a coach starts talking about increased opportunities, strong performances, and meaningful first-team work, that's usually a sign that something important is happening behind the scenes. And right now, all signs point toward Shedeur Sanders making this quarterback competition a lot more interesting than many expected just a few weeks ago. There's another part of this story that deserves a lot more attention, and honestly, it may be the biggest sign yet that Shedeur Sanders is changing minds inside the building. The Browns coaching staff has every reason to be cautious during a quarterback competition. Coaches don't want to get carried away by one good practice. They don't want to crown anybody too early. And they definitely don't want to make major decisions based on excitement alone. That's why actions matter more than words. When a quarterback starts receiving more opportunities with better players, that's an action. When he begins taking meaningful reps in competitive situations, that's an action. When coaches keep putting him back on the field with the top group instead of moving him back down the rotation, that's another action. And that's exactly what observers have been noticing with Shedeur Sanders. Think about how difficult it is for a young quarterback to earn trust at the NFL level. Every throw is evaluated. Every decision is graded. Every mistake gets replayed in meeting rooms. Coaches aren't looking for perfection, but they are looking for consistency. That's where Sanders seems to be making his biggest impact. He's not creating headlines because he's throwing the football 70 yards through the air every snap. He's creating headlines because he keeps making the correct football decision over and over again. And for coaches, that's gold. The funny thing is that some people expected Sanders to arrive and immediately rely on his athletic ability to make plays outside of structure. Instead, many of the positive reports have centered around the exact opposite: his timing, his anticipation, his patience, his willingness to take what the defense gives him. Those are veteran traits, those are winning traits, and those are the traits that gradually convince coaches a quarterback can handle more responsibility. The most impressive part may be how quickly the conversation has evolved. A few weeks ago, many discussions focused on whether Sanders could work his way into the competition. Now the discussion has shifted toward how much pressure he's putting on everyone else in the competition. That's a massive difference. Nobody is handing him anything. Nobody is guaranteeing him anything. But every practice seems to bring another report, another observation, or another sign that he's forcing the Browns coaching staff to take a long, hard look at what the future of this quarterback room might be. And when a player starts making coaches rethink their assumptions, that's usually when things get very interesting. And that's exactly why the recent reporting coming out of Cleveland feels so important. It's not just that one reporter noticed something. It's not just one media member offering a bold opinion after a single good practice. What makes this situation stand out is that multiple respected voices who cover the Browns every day are starting to describe the quarterback competition in very similar terms. And that's hard to ignore. Zach Jackson and Mary Kay Cabot don't work together. They don't share the same sources. They don't write for the same outlet. They spend their time gathering information independently and building their own conclusions based on what they see. That's what makes this so fascinating. When two experienced reporters who arrive at stories from different angles begin pointing toward the same conclusion, people start paying attention. Not because reporters are always right, but because patterns matter. And right now the pattern seems pretty clear. The conversation surrounding the Browns quarterback battle does not sound the same as it did a few weeks ago. Earlier in the offseason, much of the discussion revolved around whether Shedeur Sanders could realistically climb into the middle of this competition. Many observers viewed him as a developmental quarterback with time on his side. The assumption was that he would need patience, experience, and a long runway before becoming a serious factor. Fast forward to today, and the tone has changed dramatically. Now the discussion isn't about whether Sanders belongs in the competition, it's about how much ground he's already gained. Practice after practice, report after report, the same themes continue showing up. Increased opportunities, more first-team reps, strong decision-making, positive feedback from coaches, and perhaps most importantly, growing confidence from people who are actually watching every snap. That's not something that happens overnight. It's built one throw at a time, one practice at a time, one opportunity at a time. And according to the reports coming out of Berea, Sanders has been taking advantage of those opportunities every chance he gets. What stands out most is the way he's doing it. He's not relying on chaos. He's not trying to force highlight reel plays every snap. He's not treating every throw like he's auditioning for a football movie. Instead, he's doing something coaches love. He's playing efficient football. He's protecting the ball. He's making smart decisions. He's staying composed when pressure arrives, and he's consistently putting himself in position to earn more trust from the coaching staff. Those things might not always generate the loudest headlines, but inside NFL buildings, they're often the qualities that matter most, because coaches can live with an occasional mistake. What they struggle to live with is inconsistency, and right now Sanders appears to be building a reputation for reliability. That's a powerful thing for any quarterback, especially in a competition that many people assumed had already been decided. The reality is that nothing has officially been settled yet. Mandatory minicamp still sits directly ahead. More evaluations are coming. More practices are coming. More opportunities are coming. Every quarterback in that room still has a chance to influence the outcome. But if we're being honest, momentum is one of the most important currencies in football. And at this moment, Sanders appears to have plenty of it. The reports suggest he's entering minicamp with confidence. He's entering minicamp with meaningful reps. He's entering minicamp having earned praise from coaches and recognition from respected reporters who have watched this competition unfold from day one. Most importantly, he's entering minicamp having forced people to rethink what they believed about this quarterback battle. That's not hype. That's not wishful thinking. That's what happens when performance starts changing the conversation. For months, many people assumed this job would eventually sort itself out. Shedeur Sanders clearly had other plans. Instead of listening to outside expectations, he kept showing up, kept working, kept improving, and kept giving coaches reasons to look his way. Now the quarterback battle in Cleveland feels more alive than ever. And if the recent reports are any indication, Shedeur Sanders isn't just participating in that battle anymore. He's making sure everyone knows he's a serious part of it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another Browns update. And let me know in the comments. Do you think Shedeur Sanders has done enough to take control of this QB competition heading into minicamp, or do you believe the battle is still completely wide open? I want to hear your thoughts.